Video of the brutal police beating that led to the death of Tyree Nichols was released Friday, prompting protests across the country and renewed calls for police reform. The video of the January 7th traffic stop and assault reveals 5 officers taking turns punching and beating Nichols with a baton, and then propping him up against the car while laughing and chatting until an ambulance arrived 20 minutes later. Nichols died 3 days later from his injuries. 2 of the 5 police officers were hired after the Memphis Police Department relaxed its recruitment standards to increase the size of the force. Some have called the attack racist in nature, even though the victim and all 5 officers are black.
This is about power. It's not about black, it's about blue. It's about power. And when you have police officers who know in certain neighborhoods they better not act that way, but in other neighborhoods they can act that way, that's about power. That's about domination.
The House passed the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act in 2021, but negotiations collapsed in a divided Senate. The Tyree Nichols video has once again spurred its debate in Congress. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Republican Jim Jordan warned several officials Friday to comply with requests for information and interviews, or subpoenas will follow. Jordan sent 2 letters to former and current officials with the National School Boards Association, one to FBI Human Resources and one to the former leader of the Department of Homeland Security's Disinformation Governance Board, which is currently paused. Jordan accused each of ignoring multiple requests for interviews and documents from the Judiciary Committee. Jordan is investigating a number of issues as a check on what he says is misconduct by the Biden administration, from the Justice Department penalizing whistleblowers to likening parents at school board meetings to domestic terrorists. The National School Boards Association was forced to apologize last year for emails between the group and the Biden administration showing unethical coordination to use the FBI to target parents. A senior Air Force general predicts the United States will be at war with China within 2 years. And General Mike Minihan, who leads the Air Mobility Command, says, "I hope I am wrong. My gut tells me we will fight in 2025, end quote. He said the distraction of the U.S. and Taiwan both holding elections in 2024 will open a window for China to invade Taiwan in 2025. As General Minihan oversees nearly 50,000 service members responsible for air transport and refueling. The general's memo detailing his prediction was confirmed by NBC News. Minihan reportedly told those under his command to report all major efforts to prepare for a war with China by the end of February.
President Biden has been very strident in his statements, essentially signaling that the U.S. might put boots on the ground. But as soon as he does that, within minutes, you have folks from the White House come out, including his national security advisor, and say, well, what the president really meant was that we'll supply with the Taiwanese the weapons they need to defend themselves. Those two are very different things. And so there does appear to be either a difference in view from the White House or maybe an intentional attempt at strategic ambiguity. Either way, it sends the wrong message to the Chinese, who believe we're not prepared to defend that nation with American soldiers if and when it comes to that.
NBC News reports a Defense Department official said the views expressed in General Minihan's memo are not representative of the department's view on China.
We are pleased to welcome former naval officer Jim Nels from the Washington Examiner. Welcome to Victory News. Jim, the nation is now grieving the action of 5 Memphis police officers took the life of Tyree Nichols. No one condones that. But while the facts are gathered and prosecution prepares, CNN's Van Jones offered his own narrative. Here it is.
There's this very simplistic notion that says, well, if a white cop is doing something to an unarmed black person, then that's racism. But we sometimes forget, unfortunately, African Americans can also be guilty of hatred and bias and bigotry against other African Americans.
Jones has concluded that race wasn't an issue in this tragic event. What's your perspective?
Well, first and foremost, what happened there was horrific. I mean, people would go to jail if they beat a dog the way that they beat that poor man, and I hope that the police officers are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. However, one thing with racism, it's so low in America right now, we have to start inventing issues of racism, and that's really what Van Jones is doing. He's trying to draw a parallel saying that the police are systemically racist, and therefore, if you're a white police officer, a black police officer, Hispanic, Asian, no matter what you do is driven by race, and as he said in an earlier clip, driven by power. And I'm not so sure that that's the case. I think it's just driven by people behaving badly. Every organization has bad players in it. I wish that wouldn't have happened. And again, I hope that they're prosecuted, but I don't see racism there. I just see people behaving badly.
Yeah, I agree with you. Now, General Mike Minahan says we will be at war with China by 2025, and he's asked his enlisted members to prepare. Do any of your Washington colleagues or military contacts agree with this assessment?
People aren't talking about that very much right now, but I actually disagree with the general a little bit. I think that President Xi of China is going to keep a very close eye on the presidential election of 2024. And if it looks like the Democrats will win, he may wait till 2025. But if it looks like the Republicans are going to take office, I really see him trying to push into Taiwan before the election and trying to get a foothold there before a Republican president takes office. I think the only reason that he's not done it yet is China has historically never conducted amphibious assaults, and they don't necessarily have the capabilities to do that. So I think they're going to start with the economic blockade of Taiwan, try to get Taiwan to submit, and if they won't submit, they'll bomb them and then come in with an amphibious assault later, as well as with paratrooper assaults.
It's a good assessment of what could happen, and we pray that it doesn't happen. A few weeks ago, former NFL player Jack Brewer at a bipartisan hearing on gun violence on Capitol Hill. I want to play a short soundbite from him and get your comments. Here it is.
Fatherhood is essential. We see it. If we don't do something about this epidemic, if this was anything else, we would have already addressed it as Americans. When you look across and see 18.6 million fatherless kids in our nation, it should make our stomachs hurt.
So what impact do you think a lack of fathers and families plays in hurting the growth and maturity of young men, as the congressman said?
I think it's devastating to young men. And unfortunately, the people that grow up without fathers tend to be from the lower socioeconomic classes. So therefore, they're already starting off with, one foot on the banana peel, if you will, and another foot in the hole. Not having a father to be there as a role model, not having a father to be there as a disciplinarian really hurts these folks, and it doesn't show them how to act as adults when they get to that age. And therefore, you see things like gun violence increasing because their answer to a problem is to pick up a gun and shoot somebody. We need more parents back in the home. We need two-parent families to raise the children, not single-parent families. And I really hope that Jack and his organization are able to help with that.
I agree with you. It's the anchor. For me, as growing up, it was my anchor. It was my dad. The Washington